I got to take a break here, and JD, I do want you to stay with me through the break because I do want to give you an opportunity to respond to the tweet that I mean, there's a whole tweet thread that I attributed to Reformation Charlotte that was actually you at Pulpit and Pen blog about Tom Ascol and James White. I want to give you as much time as possible. The show goes off the air at 2 o'clock, so that's we're limited in the amount of time I can give you. But I do want to have that discussion with you. So I'm going to take a quick break. But let me just say and hopefully just put to rest the debate about Jeff Maples and his article. My intent was never to come after Jeff personally, especially in the suicide is apostasy piece that he wrote. I don't know Jeff Maples, and Jeff doesn't know me. I think if we could sit down over a cup of coffee and as a reformed guy, maybe even a beer, I don't know, and have a conversation. We might like each other, and he might unblock me from Twitter. I can't believe that 3 or 4 tweets that I directed toward Reformation Charlotte, asking the same kind of questions I've been dialoguing with you about, would warrant Jeff Maples just outright blocking me on Twitter and sarcastically telling me goodbye. That doesn't show the love and grace of Jesus. And I'll readily admit, my tone at the beginning of this program didn't show the love and grace of Jesus either. We're fallen sinners in desperate need of the gospel and of grace every day of our lives. Here's my point as we bring this part of the conversation to a close. I wish Jeff Maples had chosen to link a piece that was much more clear from Jared Wilson, maybe several articles, and maybe Jeff can do this for guys like me that are having a hard time getting their head around it. Link some articles that show a thread of Jared Wilson's thought on being Christian, being gay. Show me some evidence that Jared Wilson believed that you could be gay and at the same time be Christian. That is heresy to say that. I mean, you cannot be something that Jesus commanded you not to do. You cannot habitually sin and consider yourself following Jesus Christ. If you love me, keep my commandments. Um, I would agree with both you and Jeff Maples on the substance of that. All I'm asking for is please show evidence that your headline can be attributed. Gay Christians show the love of Jesus more than straight Christians, that Jared Wilson believed that. Because what Jared Wilson said in the piece was he knew people who went to church who were gay. He didn't say gay Christians. I get, though, JD, what you're saying. When you take in the sum of what Jared Wilson has written about homosexuality and versus Christianity, I get that you could reach that conclusion. I don't have that evidence. I'm just wishing Jeff Maples had chosen a different piece to support his assertion. That's all I'm saying. Does that make sense?
I absolutely understand what you're saying, and I would also add. I know you need to get to a break, and I'm traveling through the mountains, so I hope I can maintain reception through the commercial break. I would just say that when you're dealing with an onslaught of information and like thousands of articles, comments, emails, when you have a website that ranks like what Jeff's does on the internet with that many readers, the tendency to block someone is usually not as personal as the person takes it.
Oh,
It's
well, I
usually
take it personally because I take
I
it
have to
personally,
filter out
JD,
some
because
information or I can't live.
but
It's
JD, I take it his blocking me personally, and I don't care that he blocked me. I mean, good grief, blocking somebody on Twitter. I have 5 Twitter accounts. You're never going to find them all. So I still have access to Reformation Charlotte.
yeah. Well,
It's juvenile, it's junior highish. I take it personally because of his last tweet to me was bye in a very sarcastic way. But look, I've said sarcastic things on the radio. I'm not going to be the first to throw a stone in his direction. If he doesn't want me to be one of his followers on Twitter, that's fine with me. I get it. I got to take this
you can
break,
have that
JD.
opinion. I would just say he doesn't mean it as personal as you would take it,
I'll
and I'll
take
leave it at
that.
that.
I'll take him, and I will take that as a firsthand as a firsthand, I'm not sure what the word is I'm looking for. Don't ever turn 58. Your brain freezes up, JD. Stay on the line with me. We'll pray that the mountains don't block your reception because I do want to talk to you about your Tom Ascol, James White's tweet and thread. We're talking with JD Hall, Paul Edwards Program, Detroit. GodandCulture.com is where you can follow along. The Paul Edwards program continues here on WMUZ AM 1200, the Salt of Detroit. The Paul Edwards program in the Center for the Study of God and Culture, 313-272-5600, our phone number. Follow along with us at the blog if you're just tuning in and want to know what in the world we're talking about. It's all linked at godandculture.com. J.D. Hall is on the other end of our phone line. He runs the Pulpit and Pen blog. You can follow them on Twitter at Pulpit and Pen blog. And of course, their website is pulpitandpen.org. So, JD, help me understand. I mean, you took a lot of heat, and I'm assuming you're the one that wrote the tweet basically saying that on the issue of social justice warriors, and a lot of people in our audience aren't even going to be aware of what's going on with this, but on the issue of social justice warriors within the Southern Baptist Convention and in evangelicalism in general, that James White and Tom Ascol, and I don't have the tweet in front of me, so forgive me if I mischaracterize it, basically had to read from a teleprompter thoughts you provided in order to even have a leg to stand on. Or I'm totally botching what you said. What did you say? And the feedback has been I think at some point you said that Tom Ascol and James White were in over their heads when it came to this issue.
Right. So two different tweets, and you probably know better than I do. I said it and then dropped it. So any type of heat that we've received has been on Twitter, which is a really good place to receive heat.
Yeah.
I've not received much negative feedback in terms of email or anything like that. Twitter's not our main mode of communication. We have a website and a podcast, and that's typically how we get out information, and that's typically how we receive information. So I don't know exactly how big a kerfuffle it caused, because I don't think I've been logged back into Twitter since then. And so essentially, the primary issue is I think both men have made strategical errors in terms of their fighting of social justice, as well as most of the signers of the Dallas Statement. Particularly, it's what I would call naivety. And before I get into this, let me say I'm thankful for James White. I'm thankful for Tom Ascol. I don't believe either men to be heretics. I believe both are brothers in Christ. I am indebted to both for their work. James with Alpha and Omega Ministries. By the way, I've had him preach for me in Montana. I've invited him to conferences, and he's spoken at my conferences. I organized debate with him and Justin Lee of the Gay Christian Network. We used to be very, very close, at least close associates. Tom Ascol, I've not had any personal connection to, but I've always appreciated his work at Founders Ministries. But they've both made what I feel to be very strategically damaging mistakes in trying to lay out a defense for the true gospel against the encroachment of Marxism through its various forms, including critical race theory, cultural Marxism of the Frankfurt School, intersectionality, Rauschenbuschism, and so forth. And that primary mistake has been to not understand the subversive nature of Marxism. And I feel like, and this is just my opinion, that many who are in the social justice fight woke up in 2019 or 2017, really, and figured out, this is a problem without adequately understanding, particularly the subversive nature, meaning that people aren't always obvious about it, about what they believe. And so I'll give two basic examples of that. The first one is Matthew Hall's conversation with Tom Ascol. And I recognize that your listeners probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but Matthew Hall is provost Matthew Hall's a provost at Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, and on video teaching or espousing what is textbook, and I mean textbook, critical race theory. It couldn't have been any clearer than that.
Yeah, I think the mountains finally won.
Oh, okay.
Nope, you're back.
I'm back. And so Albert Mohler said anyone teach critical race theory at Southern Baptist Theological Seminary. But younger men, we call them.
Yeah, we lost you again, JD. We're going to need a better connection because the points you're making are coming in and
Wait,
out, and we're missing some critical stuff here.
hey, wait about 3 minutes. Yeah.
Well, we'll take another break and then talk about some other things and give you the opportunity to get to a spot where you can get a good cell connection. JD Hall is my impromptu guest today. I'm glad he called. And JD is he's the guy behind pulpitandpen.org. You can visit them online there and follow them on Twitter at Pulpit and Pen blog. And he's driving through the mountains of Montana where he lives, and so he's got a bad cell connection. We're talking about the infighting. I don't even know if infighting is the right way to characterize it, but there's a great debate going on within the Southern Baptist Convention. Um, uh, 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 and not only the Southern Baptist Convention, but that's a primary battleground within evangelicalism in general about race relations, and gender roles. And critical race theory is coming into play, and the big debate. And JD can correct me if I'm mischaracterizing this when we get him back on the phone. The critical debate is: should we be using extra biblical sources, that is, sources other than the Bible, in addition to the Bible, when we begin to think about things like women preachers, women pastors, where the Bible is very clear about gender roles? Some are arguing, well, no, we also need to take into consideration critical race theory and the Frankfurt School and other extra biblical sources as we think through these things, and we shouldn't just be relying on the Bible alone. That seems to be the essence of the debate. Now, I haven't followed James White. I followed Tom Ascol closer, but I haven't followed James White very closely on this issue. So I'm not at liberty to say where exactly either one of those men. I know where Tom Ascol is, Bible alone, and I would think James White would be Bible alone as well. J.D. Hall tweeted via his Twitter page. I need to pull it up here. We're going to take a break. I'll pull it up and read it for you. And by that time, uh, JD will probably be back on the phone with us. 47 minutes after the hour on this Friday, the 13th. The Paul Edwards program is live. And we're having a much needed conversation with JD Hall from pulpitandpen.org. And we'll continue that here on WMUZ AM 1200, the Salt of Detroit. Paul Edwards program, where God and culture meet, weekday afternoons at 1 on WMUZ AM 1200, the Salt of Detroit. The tweet that we're talking about that originated with Pulpit and Pen, I have a screenshot of it from James White. The original tweet was, frankly, James White and Tom Ascol wouldn't have a line to read from the Talking Points teleprompter if we didn't write it for them first. James White took a screenshot of some previous Pulpit and Pen blog tweets with the notation, I'm just ... what ... I mean ... so. And then he says, do you laugh or cry, in reference to these two tweets from J.D. Hall and Pulpit and Pen. If the social justice warriors are annoyed by Tom Ascol, just know that the majority of social justice contras are also. He is a fine person with good intentions, but we do not believe he fully grasps the complicated intellectual issues he's dealing with. Dear at Tom Ascol, I speak for a lot of people when I say that we appreciate your efforts against social justice, but you have no idea what you're doing, and you're intellectually unprepared for this. Please stop trying to help. You're making it worse. Let the experts handle it. Well, JD, that got a lot of feedback on Twitter, and a lot of people were saying, how could you say that a guy like James White is out of his intellectual depth on an issue like this?
Well, it's very simple. They don't understand the nature of the enemy. And so CRT is related to the Frankfurt School of Marxism. It's tied to the social justice movement, Gustavo Gutierrez, Luigi Taparelli, James Cone with Black liberation theology. It all comes from the Marxist tree. It is a subversive ideology. And you have Albert Mohler in the Federalist saying about a month ago, if anyone is caught teaching CRT at Southern Seminary, they'll be fired or they won't be employed much longer. And then some less notable guys that are only loosely affiliated with Pulpit and Pen, basically through general friendship, they began to release information about 3 professors at Southern Seminary who are very boldly teaching CRT on camera. Like, they're calling themselves, they said, this is Matthew Hall, the provost, I am a racist, I am a white supremacist. Well, the only way that he would say that and not mean that he was an actual racist or white supremacist is if he's referring to CRT. I released 14 pages of class notes from Jamar Tisby, a professor at Southern, in which in the first paragraph he said he wanted to redefine the gospel, he was going to redefine soteriology, and he was going to redefine race. And he did so in a textbook CRT fashion. So 3 professors, beyond a doubt, are remaining at Southern Seminary, even though they're teaching CRT. And I believe that there's a certain bit of naivety among some of the signers, the original signatories of the Dallas Statement on Social Justice and the Gospel, who do not understand that people lie. Marxism is subversive. When we think about, McCarthyism now, we view it as a bad thing. But had you lived through it, you would have understood that it was necessary because there aren't actually card-carrying communists. They don't carry the card. If you understand, like, Reagan's life, read a biography of Reagan. Since he was president of the Screen Actors Guild Association, he had to root up Marxists. The concept is they are subversive. Tom Ascol took a phone call from Matthew Hall, in which Matthew Hall says, oh, no, I'm not teaching CRT, in spite of him being on video espousing it textbook, as though he was quoting Delgado, the originator of CRT, himself. And then the idea is, well, we have to take their word for it because they're a good brother in Christ. They love the Lord. And so they tell us that that he's not teaching CRT, and yet he is. Or James White's coddling of Albert Mohler, who at Shepherd's Conference says who he platforms speaks for his position, and Albert Mohler platforms the most radical social justice advocates that there are today, both at Southern Seminary and in his position at the Gospel Coalition. And there's a refusal to separate. Sorry, go ahead.
Who would be some of those names that that Mohler is platforming that you're referring to?
I would refer to Sam Alberry. I would refer to Jamar Tisby. I would refer to Jarvis Williams. I would refer to, did I say Jackie Hill Perry? No. These individuals at the Gospel Coalition, Rachel Gilson, Rebecca McLaughlin, like, he's on the leadership council of the Gospel Coalition. And a lot of these people are making their way into Southern Seminary, including the 3 professors that I've mentioned. And so I believe that if you were to read, say, for example, J. Gresham Machen's book on Christianity and liberalism, you would understand the battle here and why I say they're not intellectually prepared to deal with this. And by the way, I did not mean stupid. These men are very smart. I mean, they're not prepared in terms of doing their homework to understand the subversive nature of it all. Machen taught that liberals, they don't have their own seminaries because there's no blessing. Like, they have no fruits. Theological liberalism leads to death. So they invade theologically conservative institutions and then ruin it from the inside. It's subversive, just like Marxism is. And I don't know that James White and Tom Ascol grasp that they can't take someone at their word when they say they don't teach CRT when they're on video right in front of us espousing it. Yeah. Or here's 14 pages of notes from class espousing it.
Yeah, we've got about 2 minutes left. Have you had a conversation or an email exchange or any kind of personal contact with Tom Ascol or James White on this particular issue and your concerns?
Not on these particular concerns.
Well, the only reason I say that is, I would. this is a conversation that needs to be had. And right now it's one-sided. I'm hearing from you, and I hear exactly what you say, and I agree with everything that you've said about CRT, critical race theory. The Frankfurt School, Mark, I agree. You and I are on the same page on that. So I've got one side, I've got your side. Now I need James White's side, and probably to a lesser extent, I want Tom Ascol's side. I would love to have a three-way conversation with you guys publicly about these issues. I doubt that it would happen, but I now see your heart here. I get what you're saying, and I see your concern, but you understand that,
Theologically, wolves come in sheep's clothing, right?
yeah,
I mean, Paul
right.
said they sneak in destructive heresies. They sneak in privily to spy out the church. And so we've got to get beyond they claim to be a Christian and they teach at a Southern Baptist institution. So they're not teaching something sinister because they say they're not. You can't ask a wolf if he's a wolf and expect a straight answer. So I'm just pleading for discernment and understand the subversive nature of Marxism.
I get that, and I appreciate that. I certainly do, and I'm gonna, James White has also preached for me, and it's been a long time since Dr. White and I have had a conversation. Um, I, I, I'm interested in both sides of this, and it's a conversation that needs to be had because what's creeping into the church, and it's not creeping any longer. Now it's present among us. The issues of how do we deal with race, the whole idea that if you're white, you need to apologize to your black Christian brother and sister because you're privileged, and I mean, all of that is clearly not rooted in Scripture. It's all rooted in extra biblical sources. And then the gender roles is another area that we're fighting uh, very hot and heavy on the
If I
front
could have
lines of the church.
if I could have the privilege of saying one last thing, I would say
Sure.
I believe James White to be a scholar and a gentleman, and I believe Ascol to be a scholar and a gentleman. I love those men. I do disagree with them. I do disagree with them strongly. It's not an anathema for me. I did not mean to imply in any way that they were somehow cognitively deficient. I wish them the best, and I hope that at the end of the day, we can all be unified against the things that challenge the church the most. But of first importance is being able to mark and avoid those who are teaching falsely.
Agree totally. I appreciate everything you've said, and JD, I appreciate you making the call, taking the initiative to call the program. This has been a very helpful conversation for me.
Thank you very much.
JD Hall of Pulpit and Pen, Pulpit and Pen dot. Let me get it right here. Pulpitandpen.org, pulpitandpen.org. It may even already be linked at godandculture.com. And I commend the website to you. Well, we didn't get to everything that we wanted to talk about, which means we put it on the leftover plate for Monday. Still want to talk about Jerry Falwell and all the controversy that's going on down there at Liberty. Lots of things to talk about on Monday. I'm going to be in church on Sunday, the Lord's Day, worshiping with God's people and focusing on the Lord Jesus Christ and sitting under his word. I hope you have a great Bible preaching church that you can sit under as well. We'll talk again on Monday at 1.
Yo, where'd everybody go?